So in the previous video, this is where we left off. We were creating our call migrate and append errors function. It's supposed to take errors, which is a slice and a pointer to error and slice of errors, right? And then you'll have dynamodb dot dynamodb and comma rule, which we'll define in our rules.interface. So in case you're still worrying about this rules file, we have not created the rules file yet. The package we have not created yet. We already know what our connection is. We already know that the errors that we are sending because that's what we're doing here. And rules is the only thing that I told you in the last video also not to worry about, because we'll work on this file soon and then everything will make sense, right? So here you'll say error is equal to rule dot migrate and you'll send connection again. If error not equal to nil, we'll handle the error, this error that we just might get here, we're handling it. So star error is equal to append star errors comma error. So check tables, right? Check tables is a function we're calling up there, and we want to now start creating that function. It basically takes a connection to DynamoDB. So we'll say DynamoDB dot DynamoDB returns an error only if anything goes wrong. So we'll say connection dot list tables. So connection, as you know, in this case is instance dot get connection, right? And this will basically list the number of all the tables that you have in your DynamoDB, and that basically helps us to that basically helps us with this check tables function, because we're checking if those tables actually exist or not. So you'll say list tables, and inside that bracket you'll say ampersand dynamodb dot list tables input, and whatever you get from here you'll capture in something called as response, or you'll get an error. So if response is not equal to nil, you'll say if length of response dot table names. So from your DynamoDB, you've received the list of all the tables that are there in your DynamoDB, and now you're checking for your for their length of table names. If there's a 0, then you'll say logger dot info the tables were not found, comma nil. Otherwise, what you'll do is you'll loop over them. So you'll say for comma table name response dot table names and logger dot info table found, comma star table name, and you'll return the error, right? So either table found or table not found. So obviously, right, once you get the list of all the tables, if the table names is equal to 0, then table is not found. But if you found something and you'll range over them, you'll print out all the tables that you have found, right? That's what this is doing. So this function is quite simple and straightforward. I think the only issue that you'll be facing would be here, because migrate is straightforward, but it's calling a function called call migrate and append error, and this is doing some things to do with rules which you don't know yet, and I completely understand because we'll be working on it, so everything will make sense. But our main.go file, I just want to tell you that our main.go file and our config files are both now complete. So we have done quite a bit, right? So just collapse these and collapse your utils also completely, your routes also, and I want to start working on our handlers now. So now you want to start working with handlers. You want to create 2 folders. One is going to be called health. Then you want to create one file called interface.go, and you want to create a folder called post product. All right. Now in your health, you want to create a file called health.co. In your product, you want to create a file called product.co. And with the interface, you'll define a basic interface right now. So we want to quickly finish our interface. It belongs to package handlers because that's what the name of the folder is. Import net/http. Now, in case you don't know what interfaces are, I suggest you to go check out the Golang tour so that you understand what it is. It's a very simple concept that is also used in many other programming languages. So here we're creating a variable called interface of type interface, and we're going to define the interfaces for get, post, put, delete, and options. And all of them are going to look very similar. They're going to have a response writer, which will be type http.response writer, which basically gives you the response, and it'll have a request /http.request. All right, and you just copy and paste this everywhere, and that is it. That's your interface. Now I'm just checking if the spelling is correct here. I've not made any spelling mistakes or anything like that because I've copied it in 4 other places, so it can lead to an issue. All right, everything looks good to me, and we can start working on our health and our product file. So in your health file, you'll call it package health because it belongs to the health folder. The health file belongs to the health folder, so you can call it package health. And here you'll import errors, and you need net/http. Okay. And I'll need a couple more packages, and I'll call them mostly like from my own project, some internal things that I'll need. But I'll call them in a while. For now, just create a handler which is of type struct, and it will have something called as handlers.interface, and it will have a repository which will be adapter.interface. Now this obviously means that I need to import my handlers and my adapter, these 2 packages. And how do I do that? So let me just go to my main file and copy these adapter, at least the adapter I'll copy. I'll put it here. And I also need like I said, the handlers. So I'll just copy this much till internal. Inside my internal is my handlers. So I'll say /handlers. Right, so I need these 2, and I've imported these 2. Now let me define, like in an outline, all the functions that I need. So I'll need a new handler function, and I'll need a get function here. I'll need a put function, so I'll say func put, and also need post, and delete and options. So I'll need func delete and func options. Awesome. And now we'll start working on all these functions. So before I work on those functions, I'm just making sure if it's clear to you already that this handlers.interface, when we write handlers.interface, we're talking about handlers.interface. This interface is what we're talking about, right? And now I've just found this little issue here. Should have been CRUD, and I see this issue everywhere now. I think I'll have to just fix it quickly. So I just had a small mistake in my project name. I'll also check this in other places as well. Yeah, so I'll just fix that also quickly. Awesome. So I fixed that mistake quickly. And this also I'll save all the files, and we'll come back to health.go. Now, I know like this, I may have made many mistakes in the code. And what I'll do is, in the next video, I'll just install some plugins to help me clean up if there are any mistakes. All right. The reason why I'm not using plugins in this particular course, so I've used plugins, as you must have seen in the other courses, right? In this particular courses, I'm not using any plugins because on my Windows machine, there's WSL running. On that, there's Ubuntu 20.04, and on that, I'm running VS Code. All right. So with Hyper, I think it's called Hyper-V. I'm using Hyper-V basically. WSL is a functionality in Windows which helps you to run these different Ubuntu, and you don't want them to become very heavy. So that's why I don't install a lot of different plugins and extensions and all that. But I think I'll do that for this video, because otherwise there will be just too many issues that we won't be able to handle. So new handler takes in repository, which is of type, or you already know it's of type adapter.interface. You'll just copy and paste this here. And what does it return? It returns handlers.interface. So we're basically creating a new handler. So it returns a handler. And we'll say repository. Now with your get function, this is not a regular function. This is actually a method of the type handler. So we'll say h handler. So this is a struct method. In case you don't know what struct method are, you need to check them out. Struct method basically means that this function is a type of struct method. It's not just a regular function, right? So you can read more about them. I've also talked about them in a lot of videos, right? So in this video, I'm assuming that you know the basics of Golang. So we'll have http.request. So all these concepts are really important, right? Structs and struct methods and interfaces. In case you don't know them, I have many other projects which talk more about them. That's also there in all the basic Golang courses. You can do any course online, right? So in my courses, whenever I create something, I try to not talk about the basics a lot, because there's so many people who have videos for basics. I try and build products, right, and projects which you can actually use, which not many people talk about. So we'll have http status dot internal error. So we'll say status internal server error, which is, as you know, is 500. Inside that, you'll just pass these things, right? W, which is your response, your request, and you'll use the errors package, which we have put here, errors, and you'll use the function. In case you've not used errors package before, there's a function called new, where we're saying relational databus not live. So it's creating a 500 error only, but it'll send you this kind of a text. And you return from this function. And if everything goes well, so this is when the health is not all right, then you do all this, right? You give an error. But if everything is well, right, you'll say http status dot status okay w comma r comma service okay. Now for your health package, you just want the get function to be there, as in you want people to check the health, and that's about it, right? But you don't want them to do anything with post, put, delete, and options, obviously. I'm not sure if you're understanding what I'm trying to say. So what I'll do is I'll actually create some handlers for product, and then everything will become much more easy to understand. So here in my product file, I'll create a package called product, and I'll import some things, and then again I'll create my handler, which will be of type struct, and here I'll have handlers.interface, very similar to what I've just done, and I'll have something else. I'll have a controller, which will be of type product.interface, And I'll have some rules which will be of rules.interface. Don't worry about this as of now. Okay, you have seen this, but you've not seen these two things. Don't worry. We'll talk about them. But here we'll have some functions. We'll have func new handler, just like we did here. We had a new handler. And it's very similar, just accepts the same things. So repository adapter dot interface and returns handlers dot interface. In case you've forgotten what handlers or interface are, these are basically your inside your handlers folder. Inside your handler folder, the interface, which is this, right? Get, post, put, delete options. These are your this is your basically interface that we're talking about. And from here also you'll return and handler, right? And which will basically have your controller and your rules. So the controller will be of type product dot new controller, which we'll create as a function, and you'll pass the repository there, comma. For rules, you'll have rules product dot new rules, comma. And here you'll create multiple functions. So you'll say func get, it will accept some things, return some things, and then you'll have func get one, like, you know, just get one, not the whole thing, like not all the records. And then you'll have get all, so you'll have func get all. So in our get, this main function, we'll define get one and get all, like depending on what the person wants to access. And then we'll have func post, and we'll have func put, and delete and options. Sorry. Okay. So what I want to show you right now, before we go to the health.go and start filling up the insides of these functions, what I want to show you is that for the product, right, there are two things. One is for the health, we have an API for the get API, which checks the health of the entire project. Then we have all the APIs related to product, like get, add, delete, and all of those. So here we'll have something in the get, but we'll also have something in the post. So first I'll work on the post function. Okay. So firstly, as you know, like just we did with health here, our get, right, is a struct method. So similarly here also all of our functions will be struct methods, and that's what we're going to say here. We'll say h is a type of handler. Sorry, h. And post, you'll say w http dot response writer, and r, which is http dot request. Now there will be a function called get body and validate. So let me define it out here. Func right. So if you want to access, I'm not sure if you already know about struct methods, but if you want to access struct methods, this is how you do it. You say h dot get body and validate. So h is your handler, and all of these are different struct methods. And so if you want to access a struct method called get body and validate, this is how you're going to do it, because get body and validate is a struct method, and this is how you can access h dot. Accepts a couple of things, returns some things, and has a function definition. And I'll come to it later on, but right now I just want to show you something with the post API. So here you'll pass r and uuid dot nil, and you'll get your product body So you take the request body and then you validate it, and then you get your product body here. And this is, so all that logic we're handling here. And once we do that, then you'll everything else will make more sense to you, as in how we're validating the body that we're getting in the request. But the main important part is that once it's validated that's the right body for this product, then you get everything in this variable called product body, and now you can start working on it. But if there was an error, right, after calling that function, then you'll handle it with like this. You'll say HTTP status bad request. I'll just put some spaces here. And you'll also return from here. So you'll say return. But if everything went well, then you'd want to create something, right? So you'll say controller dot create product body and ID comma error. So after you create something, obviously you get an ID back. So let's we'll handle it in our create function and controller, okay, which is firstly here. So we'll have to have a create function in our controller. But if there's an error, what we'll do is we'll say HTTP status dot internal error, server error, and we'll pass w comma r comma error, and we would return from this place. But if everything went well, you'd say HTTP status dot status okay, w comma r comma map. You will send back a map with interfaces dot string. So whatever you've posted here, after you have created it, we'll have this function. Don't worry about this function right now. It will send us back an ID, and then we'll basically send the complete interface, like everything, as part of the response, saying that, okay, we have created this particular product in our database. So this is what this function is doing, right? Now, what I want to show you is that this is the type of function that you'll need in your post and your handler. That means you'll have some routes, then you'll have a handler function like this. And what you see here is that the handler function is essentially calling a function in your controller. It's just doing some validation thing, which is also happening in another function. And whatever it gets, it's just you calling a controller function to basically, it's basically calling a controller function, right? That's what the handlers is doing. So it's not doing a lot of work, the handlers. I would just wanted you to be mindful of that. So you have routes, not doing a lot, handlers not doing a lot, but just organizing information. Then controllers kind of doing a lot, right? And then you have your database level functions, which is basically talking to the database and actually performing all the CRUD operations at the database level. But having this kind of a structure, routes, handlers, controllers, and repositories makes everything so well organized that you know where exactly is the logic for which exact thing. So you can, you know where to look for errors, where to look for validations, where to look for changing of the information, where the response is coming from, and where the exact database functions are taking place. So it's like separation of concern, and you know where to look for which exact thing. All right. So now that you know that this is what the post method of product will look like, you would also understand that the put, delete, and options will also look like something like this. Whereas for health, we just want the get function to work, right? We don't want any other functions to work. So what you want to say is that if you try using any other methods like post, put, delete, options, we want to say basically that for the health routes, this is not allowed. This status is not allowed. And now, as you know, that function put, post, and all these are basically, essentially, they are struct methods and not just random functions. So we'll say star handler. And this is what I'm going to just copy and paste out here as well. Copying and pasting, according to me, is quite dangerous, because if you make a mistake in one place, you'll make it everywhere. So just make sure you copy and paste properly. I don't support it. I don't recommend or encourage it. But whatever. Sometimes you need to use shortcuts, and and people keep asking me a lot, why don't you copy and paste a lot, and why do you write everything from scratch, is because I want to make sure that anybody who's new to Golang is following me. I want them to get very, very accustomed to the syntax, because what happens is that sooner or later you will end up in an interview which would expect you to write something from scratch, something that is like a critical program, but they would want you to write it from scratch without using any libraries. So implement like an algorithm in Golang, or create something but without using any libraries, or maybe they won't even give you a VS Code. If they'll give you access to libraries, they won't give you VS Code. They'll give you their own interview panel kind of a thing here, right? Which will be their own code editor, and you won't get all those extensions. So that'll be a big problem for you, right? It'll be an interview with the coding round. You don't get extensions. You don't get VS Code. You don't get to use VS Code there. They want to basically understand how reliable, how dependent are you on extensions and all that type of help, right? So serious companies with serious development requirements, they'll probably want to test you at a deeper level, and that's kind of where the milk from the water kind of separates, or the wheat from the chaff, right? They want the wheat. They want the best developers out there, and this is a very easy way to check for great developers, is that they don't rely extensively on extensions and plugins. Sorry, that was a very long lecture, but just want to tell you that this is why I don't support copy and pasting. This is why I don't support using a lot of extensions. This is why I support write everything from scratch, get used to the syntax very, very very, very deeply, like embed it in your brain very deeply, because when you are faced with a very difficult problem, like a difficult algorithmic problem that a company will give you, a serious development company will give you a very difficult algorithmic problem, you won't get VS Code. You will be on a call with them, so you will be under a lot of stress and pressure. They will try to put you under a lot of stress. They will check, how does this guy respond in pressure and stress, and in that kind of a scenario, you have to find a solution to that problem. So you don't want the syntax to be your limitation, because the problem itself is going to be very difficult, right? So you don't want the syntax to hold you back. This is why I recommend that stay an old school developer. All right, so HTTP, and by the way, I mentor a lot of developers, so I can tell you what's happening in the industry right now, and this is a big problem, and this is why many people don't get into the kind of roles that they want to, even when they have a very good resume and very good experience, and they're very good developers, but this is something that kind of holds them back to actually reach their full potential. So you have status method not allowed, and w comma r, and here you'll again have input. You'll have w http dot, again response writer, comma r star http dot request. So I always recommend that whenever you're watching my videos, build along with me, build the entire product along with me, so that you get used to creating products just like me. And I don't think you'll find tutorials like this anywhere, because you basically are building the early stages of an actual product. So once you have like a complete structure in place like this, right, you can build any product you want. I mean, you'll get selected in any company by showing this kind of a project. So you have put, you have delete here. For delete, you'll have http status dot status method not allowed again, w comma r, and in options again you'll pass. So for delete, we have not passed w and http dot response writer, comma r star http dot request. And in options, we'll pass w http dot response writer, comma r star http dot request, and http status dot status no content, w comma r. So that was your complete health.go file. So this is what I want to show you, that post, put, delete options, for all of them we want to say status method not allowed. So when I somehow thought that if I showed you all these functions without actually showing you what's going to happen in another function, you'll probably get confused. You'll think, why are we just writing method not allowed in all of these functions? That's because for product we want to handle these functions, but for health routes we don't want to. We just want to handle the get method. So whenever in product also, when if we find that this particular method that we don't want to handle, then we can just use method not allowed. So this kind of handles a lot of errors, right? A lot of permissioning also for the APIs. And I think we've done quite a bit in this video, and I think I'll need some rest and I'll continue in the next video. So thanks a lot for watching, and do keep following along. Do subscribe to this channel so that you come to know when the next video comes out. And I'll be bringing up some really awesome projects in the near future. We're going to be building our own NFT platform. I'm not sure it's going to be Golang, because there are many we'll have to use many libraries, right? OpenCJS and Polygon, and they're all supporting for the time being. They're because they're new, right? They're just 7-8 months old, so they're supporting JavaScript right now. But in a while they'll have Golang support, so that's when we'll build it in Golang. But right now I think I'll just create an NFT platform and show you in JavaScript how to do it. So that's a series that I'm working on currently. So do subscribe to the channel, because we'll have some really awesome content coming up. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next episode.